Live as it gets. Nothing scripted. Trying to figure out a good way to place this. If I twist this, will it go sideways? Ooh, rotating device. That's handy. Still going? Cool. First time doing this. I feel like I talk about religion because I got so many people that I see in comments. Hold on. I find when I project my voice, it has a tendency to raise a few octaves. Trying to fuck up my voice as much as I can to make it have a deeper flexion to it. Religion is one of the biggest man-made constructs that there is. I'm not trying to be someone who acts out in rage, because that's what I've been told. I'm rageful. If I was rageful, wouldn't I be cursing and swearing and freaking out? Just sharing my opinion, calling people naive is not rage. I think people are very ignorant to the definition and terminology that they use, the meanings behind the words. There's a reason why it's called spelling, because words have vibrations, and that's what a spell is. It's intent. It is things projected out with intent. They use words, they use letters, which are symbols, which can be put together to spell things. I think the only way for things to be copacetic and things to move at a natural, organic flow is for people to keep their beliefs to themselves. Don't go to church, because churches are on ley lines. Churches are organizations which have been infiltrated. You can go home and pray to whatever being you feel like. If you choose one named Jesus Christ, then that's your own prerogative. I feel like it's counterproductive to worship anybody, thing, anyone, anything. Respecting them and understanding them is different. Working with them. But to glamorize any entity, whether it's Moloch or Jesus Christ or your Savior, whichever one that is, or Azazel or Lucifuge or Babel or Beetlejuice or geez, I don't know, there's all different types of entities I've heard of, and that's not even, exorcisty scratching the surface. Like, it's not even close. I mean, look at all the pedophilia in church. That right there should be enough. Look at all the corruption in government. That should be enough. But yet people don't say anything about the corruption in government or in religion or in any other aspect of life. They might talk about it amongst themselves now and then, but there's always this status quo that they're afraid to touch on. I don't understand it. I mean, I do understand it, but when you get down to the deep core of it, I don't understand how people can see things, but then act like they're completely different in another moment. Like you claim that you're righteous and non-judgmental, but if you're religious, you're like the most judgmental people I've ever met. Very closed-minded. You're not open to any other possibilities because you believe everything the church tells you. You believe in this narrow perception of reality. That is the construct I'm talking about. If you don't know what a construct is, you need to look up constructs. I don't want to be getting into being all preachy and shit and acting like I know what everything is, because that's not the case. People are like, what are you a rebel of? Well, why are you a rebel? Why are you rebel? It's absolutely ridiculous to even question. You're just going off on a different subject. You're trying to distract. You're trying to redirect. It's ridiculous. It's counterproductive. It's ignorant. You see everything else that's going on and you just blame it on something else. Blame it on someone else. That's what they do, right? They create scapegoats. That's what politicians are. That's what all these controlled opposition people are scapegoats. Or shills. Or both. Combination of everything. I'd just like to know where you think you're actually going to go with this whole church thing. It's being taken out of the schools for a reason. People aren't responding to it for a reason. You know, you talk about Satan. You don't even know what that is. Satan is derived from the Djinn, a offshoot of the Djinn, which is called Shaitan. It's shortened into Satan. And you'll just say all kinds of hogwash, religious propaganda to other people, and they'll just go, oh yeah, praise Jesus. You should get in touch with God, and all this ridiculousness. Do you get in touch with yourself, your higher self? I don't. How do you treat animals? Do you buy food from a slaughterhouse? If so, then what is your religion doing? What is it teaching you? Nothing. You're praising gluttons and corrupt people. And some of them are pedophiles. Some of them aren't, but some of them are. And they all somehow are interrelated. And they're associated with these type of people. I don't understand how you guys think this is all right. It boggles my brain sometimes to just be like, wow. It's like, I figured it out. Why is it so hard for you to figure out? Excuse me. I know my path is different, but it all leads to the same point. All of us are going to the same point. How many times can you wake up in the morning and do the same thing and go to bed and wake up and expect different results? How many times can you play the victim and expect it to be, go in your favor? It's not going to. You're literally law of attraction, bringing more negativity towards you. You're going to church and you're saying these spells over and over in a language, in a way of speaking that you don't even do anymore. You don't even speak the way that the Bible is written. It was written, rewritten, revised in the 1600s. Do your history. This was just when they started teaching people how to read, because before then they didn't want people to know how to read. They wanted everyone to be ignorant. This is what I'm saying. You don't understand your history. You need to keep going back and going back, doing your history and figuring out where all this stuff came from. 2018 now. We have lots of information out there, ways for you to cross-reference. You need to figure out where these institutions came from, who funded these institutions, why oil, pulp and paper, why these things are the main, cotton, why these three things are like the main supply of everything, why corn is now in everything. Genetically modified glyphosate, drowned in, soaked with glyphosate and other harmful carcinogens, herbicides, pesticides. Why is there pesticides up in the North Pole where there's no farms? Why are there even huge organizations like this? You gotta ask these big questions. It's like a spider web. Ask why the President of the United States is a Freemason. Why he does this all the time. You know? You guys got to really look into stuff and stop using the lamestream media as your source of information, because it's all disinformation, and you know it is. They're even telling you their own disinformation by using individual networks to call themselves out, right? Like you got people talking about CNN being fake news. That's just the beginning. It's all fake news. It's all fabricated. Sure, if something happens locally, they'll tell you about it. But I mean, most of the time they'll just say, oh, well, we have no information on what's happening and we're not going to release any information on it, but something happened. Right? They're always leaving you with more questions because they don't want to give you too much information, because if they do, then you might start to ask more questions and then you'll figure out what's really going on. You will discover this policy-driven society has an agenda. It's an eugenics problem, a eugenics agenda. It is a problem. I have so many thoughts to come into my head when I go to articulate myself. They come out as compound words. So if I'm thinking the word problem and issue, I'll say problem issue, or plum issue, or ish prob, or something like that, you know. These are pacifying behaviors that everyone should be paying attention to whenever you're watching your lamestream media, the stage, whenever you're seeing anyone who's paid, any actors, any celebrities, any royal dignitaries, all that ridiculousness, anyone who's up in corporate, anybody in government, anyone's affiliated with these type of organizations, anyone's high up in church, the Pope, these type of people. Pay attention to the way that they move when they speak. As you have noticed, I have not done this. I have not went like this when I spoke, because I am speaking genuinely. You know, anybody who plays poker, just type in cash game. Just type in any poker, Texas Hold'em poker, and watch it for 10-15 minutes. 10-15 minutes. Watch when someone bets and they're bluffing. Watch how their body movements are completely different. Then do the same thing when you're watching politics and stuff. Watch how their body movements when they say certain things. Watch how they actually stumble over certain words, because they know deep down that they're lying, that they are reading from a script. You know, people think that the president and the premier and all these people have power. They don't. It's perceived power. There are so many other people that are behind them that write the policy. These people are just frontmen, fall guys, fall women. Now you got Oprah Winfrey running for president. Like, come on, she's a multi-billionaire who it's been shown. There's many documentaries out there. You can see that she's been exposed, just like everyone else who got big. They never tell you exactly how they got big, because they want you to believe in the dream, the American dream, or the North American dream, or whatever you want to call it, where you go to school and then you find a job in your field and then you become this successful person by working your way up the ranks. Even though when you're in high school you learn about things like the glass ceiling. So basically making it impossible for a woman to get high up. But then people think that, oh, well, it's just a man-driven society. No, it's a cult-driven society. That's why the term occult means hidden knowledge, and that's why they're called cults, because they use hidden knowledge to manipulate other people who don't have that knowledge, understanding of the way things work. That is why people down sorcery, because they don't understand how it works. These cults have done a great job of propagating things that they do. You know, they'll do witch hunts when they're performing these things. They'll claim a witch hunt on someone who is actually probably just a healer, someone who's an activist, someone who just speaks out. They'll just call them a witch, and then people burn them at the stake. Well, meanwhile, if you watch things like, for example, Merlin, which is based off of how things were back in this, I guess, the Stone Age, is it? Bronze Age, maybe? It's around the same time as the King James Age, probably a little bit before that. I think it's a bit of a lie, when they say that the Dark Age, people never knew how to read. I think people knew how to read. I just think that publicly, they probably burned a bunch of books or something, maybe, and there wasn't much around for people to read, and because of that, people were able to, become less educated in that manner. But people have always been educated. I mean, common knowledge is something that's been passed through generations and stuff. It's a misconception that people are only intelligent because the government and institutions were around to educate them. Like, that's another fallacy that is out there in society that people keep pushing as a status quo, thinking that this is the way that reality is. Yeah. If that's the case, then why are there so many people that are so high as an obelisk and other people that are, low as a catacomb? You don't care about that. You're not addressing the inequality. You're just saying, oh, well, they deserve it. It's their karma. No, it's not. It's the way society is geared. It's the way it's structured, and it's designed by these cults. All you have to do is look at who is behind the people that are doing things. The advisor for the president was Zubrinsky. This Zubrinsky dude, he was the advisor for Jimmy Carter. So that's how long he's been influencing American politics. He's from Europe. He's part of other groups, other thought groups, like CERN. That's another group that people will understand. It's a more publicly known group. Another misconception, people think that the internet was created by CERN. Oh my. The military created the internet. Well, they might not create it, but they put it together. Some people think Tesla created the internet. It's possible that it was Tesla. Possible that the internet is. It's just a way to move energy around. We're doing everything by Wi-Fi. He had Wi-Fi. He had a remote control that could turn things on and off. Late 1800s. That's just what was publicly known. Imagine what's not publicly known. That's what people aren't getting. If the military had this type of technology back then that means that they're like a century ahead of us. More than a century ahead of us. Late 1800s. This is 2018. They're like 120, let's say, just to be safe, 120 plus years ahead of us. That's why they're able to release all of this technology so slowly. Now, I'm scratching. That's because I'm actually getting itchy. Look right here. I blame it on the Wi-Fi. Chemtrail is probably another thing. That's another thing. How can you believe, which is in itself the word believe, lie is in there, to be lied to and to be okay with it. How could you believe in things like Jesus Christ and God? I mean, yes, I understand believing in higher powers, but in what they specifically tell you at church, when you can't see it, but yet planes will fly over your head and leave persistent trails that turn into clouds. They'll make crisscross patterns. This never happened before. Only recently past couple of decades, is this a constant thing? And you will claim that nothing's going on? How is that in God's will? I don't understand. That's one thing I don't understand. How someone can be religious, but yet in the same note, not be an activist. Like, it doesn't make sense. That's what it almost says you're supposed to be, but you're not that. Almost every person I talk to who's religious is far from an activist. It's absolutely ridiculous. So why the bias? You know? Why do you need to push something that doesn't benefit anybody else but your own ego on other people? If it's not helping society, like what raising awareness does about these constructs, because it gives you some knowledge on things that you obviously weren't privy to, you can then take this knowledge, meditate on it, sleep on it, do some LSD on it, smoke some weed on it, talk about it throughout your other groups, write it down, come to some conclusions about how to move forward from this, how it benefits you and how it changes your life, how it makes life better, how it improves your life knowing that these constructs exist. Once you know a construct exists, it fades away. That is why there are all these movies out there depicting things like The Matrix. You know? Like, it's actually everywhere. Every single movie, if you think about it, somehow has one aspect of it. You know, metaphorically, Star Wars, light versus dark, which basically could be the cabal versus humanity. Not humanity, but society as a whole. Because, I mean, they're technically humans, but what does it mean to be human? It's just a vessel, you know? Another thing about religious people. How can you treat animals the way you treat them? You're supposed to be loving to all of God's creatures, because God apparently created all these creatures. Isn't it funny how? So you think that this is all that God created, was this? So if you're religious, do you believe in a flat earth, or do you believe in a heliocentric model with space and the galaxies and universes and Michio Kaku and Neil deGrasse Tyson? Because in your Bible it talks about flat earth. So why don't they talk about flat earth in every single church, and why aren't all religious people flat earthers? Because that's not the case. Demons. That's another word that they throw around. It's like the word criminal. How many people get criminal records because of corrupt policies or because of situations that you've never dealt with before? It's just a mistake. You know, like, it's different if you rape somebody, you purposely kill somebody, you purposely go out to harm somebody, you do malicious things to people out of just jealousy or envy, hate crimes, these type of things. That's when people should go to jail, not for smoking pot or selling items to someone else who wants the item. Like, seriously, I don't care what it is. It's up to people to do what they want. People should be left to their own device. The only rules, laws that should be enforced are: do not harm anyone, do not steal from anyone, and don't kill anybody. Self-defense is different. Protecting yourself is different. If someone tries to rob from you, that's not a reason to kill them. But there are limits. If someone is going to steal your car, you can get the car back. If someone, see, there's lines though, right? Like, it's like, where do you go? I don't think someone should die because they stole an item. I mean, that's ridiculous. You know, but who's to say where the beating goes or how long they go to jail, you know? Because sending people to jail for such a long period of time that they're able to get these atrocities done to them, raped, beat, killed, while they're in jail, it doesn't make sense. It's hypocritical. And for people to think that it's okay and not say anything about it is worse. You know, so people who have influence in the religious community, you should be using your influence to do these things that I speak of. Speak out against all of these atrocities, including how long people go to jail, the reason why they go to jail, who goes to jail, what happens while they're in there. Fuck me. You should have people in there working, making money while they're in there. The only difference between them and us should be that they are separated from society so that they cannot harm them, because that's why they're in there, because they harm society, because they either rape, they unwillingly hurt people that didn't have it coming to them for a reason, or they kill people that, you know, don't deserve to be killed. You can't go kill someone else because they did something to someone else. You know, I think there should be a community thing where everyone gets together and then figures out, you know, who melds with their community, who doesn't. Doesn't mean you throw them in jail. That's ridiculous. You're basically doing the same thing. You're doing the same thing as them. You're actually doing worse than them, because you are guaranteeing that they and others who go in there for not always the same reason are going to get the same punishment. So somebody who is hungry and steals, and someone who wants to expand their consciousness or doesn't want to drink but still wants to have a good time, or is in pain and wants to smoke cannabis or give someone else cannabis in exchange for something, or even just fucking grow it. These people go to jail and get the same punishment as people who rape people, kill people, you know, brutally assault people, because that's what's going to happen when you go in there. So, you know, if you're religious, you should be speaking out against all these atrocities that are happening against people and doing something about it, but you don't. You ignore all of these things that are happening, and then you just sit back all complacent and go, well, I'm going to live a sinner-free life and I'm going to end up in heaven when I pass. How fucking naive are you? That is what the establishment is telling you. Why would you listen to anything the establishment is telling you? It's all there to fuck with your head. So the term government means mind control. Break it down. Govern means to control something. You're governing it. Like a governor in your car, it prevents you from going any faster than 174 kilometers an hour usually. But if you take the governor off, guess what? Car can go faster than that. Ment means mind. Government. Control the mind. Right? Limit the mind. Where do you think these words come from? They tell you that a lot of words derive from Latin, especially medical terms and shit. So do the government terms. It's ridiculous. A lot of the terms mean sexual meanings. Like Congress. Like, look these things up, people. Like, look up a person in law terms. A person is someone who can't own property. Hmm? Look up mortgage. A mortgage is a death pledge. Go get your mortgages. It's like You almost like, if I wrote down all these different topics that all connect in this big spider web that people like to call conspiracy theories, without knowing that the term conspiracy theory was coined by Richard Nixon, Tricky Dicky, because of the Watergate scandal, which turned out to be right. 99.9999999 fucking 999 repeating are fucking right. And then so many more that you don't know about are right. It's ridiculous. Why do you think all these corporations are being bought up by more corporations? Y'all need to start watching the show Continuum. They did a perfect job. And if you want to talk about Project Bluebeam, watch the show V. A V. It's just a letter V. That'll tell you about the reptilians and shit. That's another thing. If you're religious, you should. If God creates all these things, then why wouldn't humanoid versions of all the animals exist? Why does only a humanoid version of the Neanderthal ape type exist? Be real. There's one of everything. There's mantis, reptilians, bears, wolves, felines. You name it, they're out there. Humanoid is just one developmental stage of a species, like, it's just ridiculous. It's like you look at different types of insects. They're different shapes. But you like different types of beetles. You get little tiny beetles with the little tiny specks on them, and they flies around and pollinate stuff, and they're really pretty when it lands on you. But then you got these other beetles. Oh, you don't want to you gotta stay away from them, because they'll eat you. Flesh-eating beetles. That's just the stages that we're aware of. There's evolution. When I say evolution, I don't mean that in some science jargon type of shit. I'm just talking about as a terminology to explain advancement of a species. That's all. I'm not talking about survival of the fittest, none of that bullshit. I'm just talking about something advancing, right? Like your mind should be, as you grow every day, you should be advancing. That's why they say you should learn something new every day. Don't be fooled every day. Don't indoctrinate yourself every day. Understand that the majority of things are set up for a reason. They are either to perpetuate a lie or to perpetuate atrocities and perpetuate. It's basically about perpetuating shit. It's anybody who's out there to help you is usually just an individual like myself, a small business owner. Those people are the people that are going to help you out. Sorry, but anybody who's, like uber rich, like I'm talking like it don't matter to them. If they want to go buy something, they do. A house somewhere, they do. When it doesn't matter, from that level up, people that have these cards, they don't even use money. They just swipe, And other people perpetuating the cashless society. Why is that not a good idea? That's like Bitcoin. Terrible idea. I don't care if you can make a quick buck from it now. It's a terrible idea because in the long run, you're just perpetuating the idea of a cashless society, which means they can control your purchases, which means that how are you going to trade things, which means we're just going to have to create our own currency. That's what they're pushing us to do, is to create our own currency. And they know that most people are so dependent on the system, and they're so trapped in their own constructs that are built from these other constructs, because your mind will create its own constructs to help deal and cope with things that you're either not allowing it to understand, or it just doesn't understand because it hasn't had the experience, it hasn't had the information come in, it hasn't dealt with things adversely for it to look at it in a different perspective. If things are working out, then they're great. And every time you go to do something, it works out perfect. You're not gonna analyze it any deeper because it's working out great. Why would you? That is the point. See, purpose and point get mixed together into a stutter. Spit it out, Junior. It all gets like your brain. It's like the flight, fight, or freeze mode. It's a reaction to things. So the brain is constantly analyzing, downloading, and trying to figure out the best way to do things so that it can survive. This is why it's very important to sleep, so that your brain can figure these things out. So when you wake up in the morning, you're more fresh, and when things come at you, you don't get all confused and angry because you don't understand. This is why so many people who are religious get angry so easily, because they have a very minimal understanding. But they don't themselves consciously grasp this because they have so many narrow, very tiny, one-worded answers, very small sentences. They don't even have paragraphs to explain why things happen. They usually have the same word for why things happen, or the same response to people saying things. That is not an expression of intelligence. That is an expression of someone who is highly compartmentalized and whose brain is just constructed to death. You're like a whole bunch of Rubik's Cubes. You know those little tiny cubes? They all make one big Rubik's Cube? Well, that's your brain. A completely brand new Rubik's Cube, unfinished. Like, not when you first get it and it's got all the colors together. It's all mixed up. None of them. Like, it's right. It's as far as you could go away from being complete. That's where it's to. It's basically 1 or 2 steps, because that's as far as you've gotten. You're able to get up, do your daily things, and still come home and not die, because society is geared that way to the point where most people are at least intelligent enough to know that if they're going to commit a crime, they're not going to do it in broad daylight while everyone is out walking around. So then most people who are like this will just only walk around in broad daylight and won't go down dark alleys and all this kind of crap. It's a construct you have built up because you think society is a certain way, and because you think that, then it's easy for them to tell you about things like, oh, terrorism, oh, Al Qaeda, ISIS, all this crap, when then it comes out later that all this was false. Oh, there actually wasn't any threat. Oh, it was actually this. Oh, it was actually that. Oh, they're actually not going to come here. Oh, Kim Jong-un's actually not going to do anything. Oh, there are no nuclear missiles. Oh, they all have nuclear missiles. Oh, there are no such thing as nukes. The story just keeps changing. It's just a fear tactic to keep you in the same constructed mode, on the same path, doing the same thing every day, paying your bills every month. It's ridiculous. And then, when you go to get some compensation for the things you've been paying into, either the corporation went out of business, or the government changed their policies, or there's a loophole, or they just make you wait so long, that by then you're suffering so much and you're in such bad health that, because you can't get nowhere else, no other way, because there's so many other constructs. Like nowadays, you can't even get a job if you got a criminal record, which is absolutely ridiculous, because most of the people you're hiring who don't have criminal records, they're more of a threat to your company than the people with criminal records, because the people who haven't committed a crime are higher. They're in the higher percentile. They're more likely to commit a crime because they haven't yet. But someone who has committed a crime, yes, it makes them easier to commit these again, but they also already know the outcome. They know what happens. They've done this. They've made the mistake. But people who haven't already, oh my God, do you know what they're already doing? They just haven't been caught yet. It's hilarious. There's so many people who are really good talkers and get into these places, and you think that they're doing a good job for you. No, they're just as corrupt or more worse than you. They're waiting to take your position. It's hilarious. Anyways, I gotta end this because the phone is gonna die. It's at 5%. First time I did a live. Hope no one's butt got hurt. That's not my intent. My intent was to begin a conversation, and maybe I'll do another one and have some more concrete notes, and we can go into a more finite direction. Rebel out. As soon as I figure out how to stop it.